This is going to be my favorite video so far, where I show you how you can build a custom policy using just a little bit of code inside your Zooplo API gateway. As we've seen in other videos, you can use policies for all kinds of things. They're quite powerful. They intercept incoming requests and either change the request, do nothing, or they can even short circuit that pipeline and send a response back to the client. That's what happens in our authentication policies often, where if you configure it that way, it will actually reject an invalid request with a 401 unauthorized. What we're going to do today is leave the request unscathed, but actually make a clone of that request and write it to S3 storage as an archive copy. So we're going to write it to this bucket here on Amazon S3 called request storage. This can be handy if you want to keep a history of incoming requests, or perhaps have redundancy in case your backend goes down and you want to be able to replay them and analyze them. But the key point here is to show you just how extensible Zooplo is and how easy it is to add custom policies. So we're going to create a new policy. I'm going to call it archive request. And when that opens up in a second here, we're just going to tidy up some of this code. I don't need these options. I don't need most of these parameters in this example. I just need the request. And then this is where my code is going to go. Notice the default behavior is to return a request. That just means continue as normal unless I change the request in some way. Now we're going to move over a little bit of code here. Let's import the S3 client libraries. And then there's a little bit of code I wrote earlier, but you'll see it's really pretty simple. I'm going to save that. What this is doing, it's creating an instance of the S3 client in the US East 2 region. It's generating a file name based on the epoch and then a GUID to ensure it's unique, followed by .request.text. We need to clone the request. If you ever read the body in Zooplo, you will need to clone it so that you don't prevent the body from being read when it gets passed downstream. And then we create our upload parameters that we're going to pass to the client. So it says what the storage bucket name is, what that file name is, and then we generate a contents of the text file based on the URL method and body of the incoming request. Last thing we got to do is send that data over to S3. So now I need to connect that policy to my routes. And you can do it using the policy designer, but actually I'm going to show you how you can also edit the JSON directly in this case. So we're going to give it a name. Let's call it archive request. And we're going to give it a policy type of custom code. And then we need to specify the handler. And the handler basically says, where is the function that you want me to invoke? So we specify the default function, and the module was $import.modules/archive request. It was that file that we created earlier over here. And I think we're good to go. The last thing we need to do is make sure it's actually referenced by one of our routes. So we plop it on these inbound policies section here of this hello world route that we've been using throughout these demos. So now let's go over to our test client. We have a post ready here. It's going to post message hello mom. And so with a build when I test that, that will actually get written to S3 storage, except you can tell I'm making these live. I got a 500 internal server error, and it says we could not load credentials from any providers. That's because we haven't configured the S3 client. So we need to go over to our environment here and add a config file. So I'm going to get this AWS access key ID, and I'm going to enter the access key ID here. If you've ever used AWS, you'll be familiar with these security concepts. And then I need a secret access key, and this is a secret. So I've actually made it a secret so that you folks cannot see it. Ha ha ha. And then when I save that, that's actually going to deploy those to our secure vault. And now when I run my client, with a bit of luck, I'll get a 200 OK. It looks like the request just went ahead as normal. But if I go into S3 storage here, you'll see I now have a request. And the contents of this, if I open that up and download it, here's the file now. It's just opened up off screen. You can see here it says URL is hello world. The method was post, and the body was a JSON string saying hello mom. That's how easy it is to create a custom policy in Zooplo, just a couple of minutes.